Hello and welcome back to Technocracy at Large. I'm Siddhan Chandra, here every Saturday to look at current events and collective conditions through the lens of Technocracy, which is a call for the rule of minors and minorities. Technocratic education is led by minors and minorities aimed at adults and the majority through movements like BLM, Occupy, Me Too, Fridays for Future, and it is also aimed at the 99% who are historically divided by the 1%, divided and ruled by the 1%, so that we can integrate enough to be able to rule and regulate the planet's richest 1%. Two white rich men raced to outer space while many of the 99% scrambled to flee from forest fires and inundating floods on Earth. And this is personal. The forest fires in Ontario turned the sun and the moon red for those of us living here in Toronto. Zuckerberg of Facebook and Biden, the US president, butted heads on COVID misinformation, while the Taliban have practically taken over Afghanistan. But the most explosive of them all is the Pegasus Spyware data leak of 50,000 phone numbers globally, snooped on since 2016 by the governmental clients of the NSO group, an Israeli surveillance software company. The clients were governments of 10 countries, including India, Mexico, Rwanda, Saudi Arabia, Hungary, and Morocco. And the persons on the list were heads of state: Macron of France, Obrador of Mexico, Imran Khan of Pakistan, and Charles Michel of the European Union. In India, the list includes top opposition leaders, noted journalists, and activists. Among activists, it is not surprising to see the names of Sudha Bharadwaj, Anand Teltunde, Rona Wilson, Vernon Gonzalez, and several others accused in what's called the Bhima Koregaon case and currently in jail without bail on the basis of documents found on their electronic devices. Stan Swamy, an indigenous rights activist who died in jail earlier this month, was among the co-accused in the Bhima Koregaon case. While BJP leaders are blustering about baseless allegations and accusing Amnesty International for encouraging left-wing terrorism in India to defame India and Modi, the very global expanse of the surveillance hit list ensures that global fascism has been dealt a powerful blow. The Pegasus Spyware data leak, initially accessed by Amnesty International's technology lab, has been parsed by other peer groups and by a global consortium of journals, including The Guardian, The Washington Post, and The Wire. The NSO group denies everything in lawyer speak. It says it sells only to vetted governments fighting terrorism. The Guardian breaks down its clients as intelligence agencies 51%, law enforcement agencies 38%, and military 11%. The call to defund the police and by extension demilitarize the planet resonates more and more every day. In Israel, where the NSO group is based, people are more upset about Ben & Jerry's ice cream company boycotting the market in occupied Palestinian territories, quote unquote, than by this colossal expose. While some politicians made some tepid statements about tightening spyware and weapon export rules, most of the national conversation was around Ben & Jerry's boycott. Netanyahu tweeted that Israelis should boycott Ben and Jerry's, and Yair Lapid, the foreign minister and the alternate prime minister, called the ice cream company's boycott shameful surrender to anti-Semitism. And Israeli president called it a new kind of terrorism. Delia Scheidlin, a policy expert, writing in The Guardian on why Israel is more concerned about Ben and Jerry's than the Pegasus revelations, says, the lack of a national conversation about NSO, save for a smattering of critical columns, is symbolic. Israelis are well aware that cutting-edge technology is a massive driver of its economy. In 2019, the industry accounted for nearly half of all the country's exports, employing nearly 10% of the workforce. Moreover, Israeli technology is essential to the country's national image and identity in the 21st century. In the popular imagination, high-tech is the modern incarnation of Israel's plucky pioneering spirit that once made the desert bloom. For Jewish Israelis, she goes on, high-tech symbolizes Jewish exceptionalism. In a 2018 speech, Netanyahu declared that Israel, quote-unquote, punches above its weight. Before an adoring American audience, he asserted that Israel, just 0.1% of the global population, received 20% of the global investment in cybersecurity startups. In other words, there is no line separating capitalism from warfare on the 99%. Israeli exceptionalism comes from its financial success in the military industry. Not surprising that other fascists like Modi mimic Israel's national exceptionalism based on neoliberal capitalist productivity, and bought Israel's example and its products to imprison thousands of dissenting minorities, indigenous people, Muslims, Dalits, environmentalists, students, and others. Scheidlin aptly describes how fascism and surveillance technology enable each other. To Israelis, the technology industry proves that Israel is the good guy and neutralizes the country's dark side, the occupation of Palestinian territories since 1967 and the conflict since 1948. Of course, the conflict involves many of the very same human rights violations and destruction of democracy that Pegasus enabled the world over. This is not a coincidence. Israel excels in surveillance because Israel does surveillance all day, every day of Palestinians. And where are we in this ever-darkening picture? Should we count on the European Union imposing curbs on the Israeli weapons industry? Should we trust the great Christian leaders of the global north, who have enabled a proxy fascist state to continue their centuries-old crusades against Islam, who are all married to neoliberal capitalism, who have bungled on the climate crisis, and have engendered the likes of Bezos and Branson? It is up to us now. Last week, I presented the life and death of Stan Swamy, who died in a prison earlier this month in India, as an unreturnable gift. According to the French philosopher George Bataille's notion of the pure gift, as a strike against oppressive production, be it capitalist or feudal, exploding the economy of utilitarian exchange. Stan took a heroic, noble risk, challenging the Indian government in courts for imprisoning 3,000 indigenous people in Jharkhand, striking against the utilitarian exchange between mining corporations and the neoliberal state. But that is not the only model. We don't all have to run for Jesus. There are other modes of the gift. There are ways of dismantling oppressive productive systems through various modes of disaffiliation. Today, I want to touch briefly on the Indian farmers' strike, Chinese millennials practicing tanping, and Canadian seniors and children protecting old growth forests in Canada. The Indian farmers of Punjab are still striking outside Delhi, protesting the farm laws that the Modi government passed last year, opening up the agricultural sector to global market conditions. They have set up kitchens and are distributing food, free food, for people struggling in the COVID crisis, and building intersectional solidarity with students, women, Dalits, Muslims, and other minorities. While farmers and minorities of India are derailing Modi's plans of moving bodies from agriculture to factories, in China, where that happened decades ago, there is a new countercultural movement among millennials in China called tanping, or lying flat. It started with Luo Huozong, a Chinese factory worker who quit his job 5 years ago and cycled 1,300 kilometers to Tibet and began living on odd jobs and otherwise lying flat. As reported in the New York Times, he titled his post "Lying Flat is Justice," attaching a photo of himself lying on his bed in a dark room with curtains drawn. Before long, the post was being celebrated by Chinese millennials as an anti-consumerist manifesto. Lying flat went viral and has since become a broader statement about Chinese society. Mr. Luo's blog post was removed by censors, who saw it as an affront to Beijing's economic ambitions. Mentions of lying flat, tanping as it is known in Mandarin, are heavily restricted on the Chinese internet. An official counter-narrative has also emerged, encouraging young people to work hard for the sake of the country's future. To lie flat means to forego marriage, not have children, stay unemployed, and eschew material wants such as a house or a car. It is the opposite of what China's leaders have asked of their people. The ruling Communist Party, wary of any form of social instability, has targeted the lying flat idea as a threat to stability in China. Censors have deleted a tanping group with more than 9,000 members on Douban, a popular internet forum. The authorities also barred posts on another tanping forum with more than 200,000 members. Xiang Biao, a professor of social anthropology at Oxford, calls tanping culture a turning point for China. He says, young people feel a kind of pressure that they cannot explain, and they feel that promises were broken. People realize that material betterment is no longer the single most important source of meaning in life. And in my final example, an American teenager called Joshua Wright, who was stuck in lockdown last year in August and could not visit the old growth forests of Vancouver that he visited every summer, decided to visit it online and found a new logging road going into the old growth forest area that he loved. He alerted conservation groups in BC, and within a week there were encampments blocking the work of the logging company. Indigenous people, seniors from Victoria, families with children populate the numerous encampments operating as autonomous zones. In May, the BC courts issued an injunction supporting the logging company when the arrests began, and since then there have been 376 arrests. But in June, the provincial government approved a 2-year deferral of old growth logging in the area. But protests and blockades continue, demanding a permanent end to logging of old growth forests in the province. So the blockades continue and arrests as well. And on July 7th, there were 8 people arrested, including 2 minors. A CTV report quotes a hilarious paragraph from the Mounties' statement. Open quote. Police are aware that there was a call out for parents to bring their children to the camps supporting the protest activities. Today's enforcement included the arrest of 2 minors who were actively engaged in breaching the injunction by being in a tripod and locking themselves in a sleeping dragon. We are asking parents to help prevent their minors from participating in these dangerous and illegal activities, unquote. I don't know what being in a tripod is or locking oneself in a sleeping dragon, but I'm certain of this, that it is an expression of the gift. So, the range of the gift as a strike against oppressive systems of production is as wide-ranging as the diversity of the 99%. So I would like to know, what other forms of the gift have you witnessed? What is your version of the gift? Which of these models inspire you? Please do share in the comment section. Till next week, bye.